This is the Selkirk SLK Era Power Elongated Paddle. Yes, it's still a long name, but no, this is not like any other paddle that Selkirk has released so far. There's a ton of reviews out there for this paddle, and for really good reason. So who is this paddle for? Who might it not be for? How has my playing been with it so far? Let's get into it. Before we go any further, I will mention that I am a Selkirk advocate, and as part of the Selkirk team, I didn't have to pay for this paddle. That said, Selkirk does not expect that I'll do a review for this paddle, and they have no input in what I say about it at all. I do have a code down in the description which will get you a Selkirk gift card if you purchase this paddle on Selkirk.com. I do get a small commission, and it also helps me to keep making content like this. Now, this is not going to be an overly technical review. If you are looking for a super technical review that's fantastic, I'd 100% suggest that you head over to John Q Pickleball's channel. He does the best paddle reviews on the internet, in my opinion, and I want to thank John for some of the metrics that I'm going to use and the paddle X-ray graphic as well. His full review video is linked below in the description. The Era Power is Selkirk's first foray into what's known as Gen 3 construction. In layman's terms, this means that we still have a polypropylene honeycomb core like always, but that core now floats between the face plies and is surrounded entirely by an EVA foam ring. The honeycomb in the handle is also surrounded by expanding edge foam. The EVA foam ring in the Era Powers is covered over by strips of carbon fiber, which keeps the foam from degrading, and it also increases the stability of the paddle on off-center hits. So this tech's been around for the better part of a year, and Selkirk has been criticized in the review space for being a quote late adopter of this build technique. One of the big issues though with Gen 3 construction is durability. There's a lot of quality control that has to be done correctly, and the tolerances are very, very small. If anything in the build isn't quite right, what you wind up with is a paddle that core crushes really quickly. Now, at close to $300 for most paddles that use this tech, Selkirk wanted to be very sure that if they released a paddle built in this way, it wasn't going to be unusable within a month or two. The SLK Era carries a 1-year warranty, and Selkirk honestly is the best in the business when it comes to honoring their warranties. By releasing this paddle in their SLK line, Selkirk is able to keep the price more reasonable, which is a huge positive for the customer. Be aware that like all paddles in the SLK line, the Era is made overseas. As the name states, the SLK Era is absolutely a power paddle. Now, it is slightly less powerful than the Yola Pro 4s, the Rhombus Ripples, or the Holbrook Armas, and in my opinion, that is entirely a good thing. Here are the stats for the Era Power Elongated, which is the paddle I'm using and the paddle that I'd also recommend for most players. Any numbers in the parentheses are borrowed from John Q Pickleball. Everything else you're seeing is actually from Selkirk directly. Now, I know there's not a lot to look at here, but I want to highlight a few things in red that I think are the most important if you're considering this paddle. Selkirk lists a recommended skill level of intermediate to advanced for the SLK Era, and I would totally agree with this. I'd say that if you're around a 3.5 to maybe even a 4.0 player, you're going to be able to figure out how to manage the power level of these paddles. It's going to potentially take you a bit of time, and you may find yourself hitting a few more balls out and maybe popping up a few more balls at the non-volley zone. But you will find that the added power and pop that this paddle will help you on serves, it's going to help you on counters, and it's going to help you on putaways. I've definitely noticed that, and my friends, honestly, who've played against me can attest to that as well. I think what's more important than the added power and the pop, though, is the dwell time that's inherent with the design of the Era Power. Without going too techie here, dwell just means how long the ball is able to stay on the face of the paddle before it gets launched back off again. The floating core of the Era Power flexes just a bit more, and it lets the ball stay on the face just that little split second longer. That extra dwell time means that if you have well-developed technique, you can put an absolutely huge amount of spin on the ball. I've gotten a bunch of comments since I switched to the Era Power Elongated on how much shape my shots have on them. I am able to hit topspin drives, drips, and drops that have a ton of spin on them, so they dip in a big hurry. And if my opponents can't or choose not to volley those shots, they often end up in a world of hurt, which is great for me. The spin numbers that John came up with at nearly 2200 RPM are extremely good, but I think the Era Powers actually perform maybe even better in the spin realm than the numbers would suggest. That extra little pocketing of the ball is also really useful on shots with backspin or side spin, in addition to just topspin shots. The Era Powers have very long handles with a usable length of around 6 inches plus. If you hit a two-handed backhand, you're going to find plenty of space on the handle, and I think the Eras have one of the nicest feeling tapers at the neck of any longer handled paddle that I've ever used. It's actually so good that I'm having to get used to it coming from my previous hybrid shaped paddle. The handle width is comfortable for me, and the bevels feel good without being too sharp. The dimensions otherwise are pretty normal for an elongated paddle, though I will point out that slightly rounded top and the balance point of the Era elongated makes it feel less head-heavy than most elongated paddles. The twist weight is higher than average for this shape, which is also great, and due to the extra carbon fiber strips around the edges is where I think that's coming from. Because of everything that's inside these paddles, the static weight is a bit on the higher end, but you won't need to add a lot of lead or tungsten tape because the twist weight is already quite good. I added my normal Hesacore grip and just a bit of lead tape around the throat like I always do. You might have seen that when I held up the paddle at the beginning. But this paddle does play really well in stock form if that's something that you prefer to do. The sweet spot on the Era Power feels really good. It's not overly narrow, and the paddle is quite forgiving on off-center hits, which is especially nice for resets. Once you get used to the feel of this paddle, the control at the non-volley zone is there, and your counters are going to come off super hot, which is pretty awesome, honestly. The added pop on the Era shows up if you swing with more velocity, right? So I think this is due to the construction of the face, where you have a layer of fiberglass sandwiched in between two layers of carbon fiber. On softer shots, the ball doesn't get as much energy from the fiberglass, so the feel on dinks and drops is actually quite soft. It's only when you swing through the ball more that the paddle kind of firms up. Overall, I'd say that it has a soft, too firm or springy feel that I think a lot of people are really going to connect heavily with. Another added benefit of the construction of the SLK Eras is shock absorption. All the foam cushions the ball impact, and the increased dwell means that you don't have to swing as hard to produce a lot of power. That all adds up to a paddle that, despite its higher swing weight, is going to help out people actually that have elbow and forearm issues. Now, if a lot of what I've said so far has shot right over your head, A, I apologize, and B, I can probably suggest several other paddles that might be a better fit for you. If you're somebody that's a little bit less experienced, I would think more about a control-oriented paddle like the Selkirk SLK Halo or the Vanguard Pro. The power and pop levels of the SLK Era Power are very high, and most less experienced players are going to have a bit of a difficult time controlling this paddle. The other issue with using a power paddle when you're newer to the game is that it can stunt your growth as far as shot mechanics go. With a power paddle, you can kind of punch at the ball and get it to go somewhere near where you're trying to get it to go. A less powerful paddle is going to encourage you to actually swing through the ball fully, because if you don't swing through, then the ball doesn't travel where you want it to go. If you're pretty new to generating your own spin through stroke mechanics still, I would take a pass on the Era Power right now. Selkirk lists the control metric on the Era Power as 7.5 out of 10, and this is largely due to the amount of power and pop that this paddle has. If you're somebody that doesn't have the experience to harness this, you're likely to find that you're hitting a lot of balls all over the place on the court, and worse, honestly, that you're hitting your opponents with the ball way more than you're meaning to, which is never a good thing. Overall, I think Selkirk absolutely knocked it out of the park with the SLK Era Power. It sits at the highest price right now in the SLK range, but given the technology in this paddle and how much precision is needed in the manufacturing process, to me this price makes sense. Part of it is also that you're paying for is the 1-year warranty on manufacturing and a customer service experience that's the best in the business. For me, the Era Power really represents a new direction for Selkirk. The two shapes in the Era Power are going to eventually replace the existing Selkirk shapes like the Invicta, the Epic, and the S2. I personally think that the new shapes are really excellent both in terms of performance and aesthetics, and I love the fact that Selkirk is actively simplifying their lineup over time. The rubber ultimately has to hit the road with a paddle. It may look really cool, but it has to actually perform on the court. The Era Power Elongated is certainly performing well for me so far. And let me know in the comments below if you have any questions about the Era Pro. Please feel free to use my code, and I'll see you in the next one.